The Pentagon recently issued a statement saying that they will no longer assist Hollywood movies that are willing to comply with Beijing's censorship. The relationship between Hollywood and the Department of Defense is like an old married couple, relying on and supporting each other. Filmmakers have been able to shoot their projects on military bases, naval vessels, or other locations, while the military benefits from positive portrayals of their service members. But now, the Pentagon is saying, Hollywood, we need to talk. I can't accept your infidelity anymore. You can't use my military bases to make movies and then go dance with Beijing. Can you imagine that scene? It's like watching a passionate love drama where the male lead discovers his lover is secretly involved with someone else, breaking his heart and making him angry. I think this could be a dilemma for Hollywood, but it could also be their liberation. Just think about it, they have been tormented enough by the Hollywood production, Beijing censorship model. Do you remember Top Gun, Maverick? When that movie was released, viewers noticed that the production studio had removed the flags of Taiwan and Japan from Captain Pete, Maverick, Mitchell's flight jacket. It was done to appease Chinese investors, specifically Tencent. However, due to criticism from Americans, those flags were put back in the final version. There was once a movie called World War Z, where the producers, in order to please China, designed a scene where a former United Nations investigator flies over China and encounters surviving Chinese people fighting zombies on the Qinghai Tibet Plateau. It turns out they didn't go to the cold north, but instead came to high-latitude regions that would also slow down the spread of the virus. Such a plot design not only made the Chinese proud but also portrayed them as resilient and creative. But do you know the ending of this movie? No, I'm not talking about the hero saves the day ending. I mean, this plot design didn't actually make it into the film. The production company later withdrew from making this movie. You might think it's a tragedy, but to me, it's funnier than any comedy. We can imagine the inner monologue of the producers. We tried so hard to design this scene, hoping to pass Beijing's censorship, and in the end, our movie didn't get released, but Beijing's censorship continued. Our efforts were like trying to make ice in the desert, not impossible, just too difficult. The Pentagon is like the betrayed male lead, standing up and saying, do you know what? I have my self-respect too. I can't tolerate your infidelity anymore. If you want to continue with me, you have to promise me that you won't let Beijing censor your movies first. It's truly a dramatic scene, even Hollywood couldn't come up with such a plot. Now, the Pentagon is like the male lead who has learned from the pain, standing there, picking up the microphone and saying, I need someone who can be loyal to me, who won't betray me. Those who want to be with me, you have to promise me that you won't let Beijing censor your movies anymore. It's like a punishment after a breakup. If you want to return to my embrace, you must promise that you won't make the same mistakes again. So, filmmakers, if you still want the support of the Pentagon, you must ensure that your movies won't be subjected to Beijing's censorship. Otherwise, you'll have to find your own locations to shoot, find your own warships, find your own fighter jets. If you can't find them, then try making a film like Top Gun 3. My neighbor is an aircraft carrier in your backyard. Give it a try and see if your audience enjoys watching an aircraft carrier in a backyard and a superhero wielding a frying pan as a shield. But I think when the Pentagon says they won't support these kinds of movies anymore, Hollywood might be breathing a sigh of relief. They might think, Hollywood movies no longer need to worry about Beijing's censorship. We can be ourselves again, without having to fabricate plots to please China. But who knows? Perhaps one day, we'll see a movie with a story like this. The protagonist is a Hollywood producer who, in order to get their movie approved by Beijing, not only learns Chinese but also becomes a master of Chinese martial arts and even becomes a chef specializing in Beijing roast duck. And the Pentagon watches from the sidelines, shaking their heads, saying, we warned you. Let's salute the Pentagon for giving Hollywood a choice. Either become a good filmmaker or become a professional China expert. The choice is yours, we're just providing the options. The recent events in Myanmar feel like they've come straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster, don't they? Have you heard the news? A convoy of the Chinese military delegation was attacked in Myanmar. I can already imagine the tense atmosphere at the scene. On Tuesday morning, a convoy filled with Chinese military representatives was traveling on the roads of Myanmar, heading to a security meeting. I imagine they were probably discussing how to avoid traffic or deciding what to have for lunch. You know, those are the kind of things that can happen in a convoy heading to a meeting. Then suddenly, bang bang bang. The second vehicle was shot 5 times. At that moment, I imagine they were silently thinking, why didn't I bring that bulletproof vest? Or, I should have been in the first vehicle. The Myanmar military government then claimed that it was the work of the Kachin Independence Army. But then the Kachin Independence Army came out and said, hey, it wasn't us. This scene reminds me of the game I used to play as a child, you know, hide and seek, that feeling of, who am I, where am I, and what am I doing? Then, Major General Zhao Min-tun, the spokesperson for the military government, came out and said that there were no Chinese consuls in the delegation, and they were not visiting the Nanjing Economic Zone project. It sounds like they're saying, you said we were going to a party, but we never received an invitation. If this happened to me, I think I would probably think, wow, my life is already so full of excitement, maybe I should join Extreme Challenge, or Running Man, to balance things out. Let's talk about the real estate market in China. In early 2023, the Chinese real estate market experienced a brief rebound, as if it had consumed some Red Bull. However, just like the post-Red Bull crash, the market once again slumped, with transaction volumes declining in major cities, including Shanghai. For those looking to sell their properties, this feeling is even worse than drinking fake Red Bull. However, for buyers, this might not necessarily be a bad thing. You see, homeowners are rushing to sell their properties, almost like selling discounted rotten apples. This has turned the second-hand housing market into a frenzy, even hotter than Black Friday sales. It's reached new heights in recent years, as homeowners seem to be competing in a sell your house competition, where the fastest seller takes home the gold. For those living in Shanghai, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You might be thinking, I don't care about the housing market, I just want to continue living in Shanghai. I understand your sentiment. In 2022, Shanghai experienced a net outflow of 135,000 people, marking the first population decline in 45 years since 1978. In such circumstances, to survive in Shanghai, you either need to excel academically and outcompete others, or you need to be wealthy enough to have the last laugh in the soaring housing market. Sometimes, living in Shanghai can feel like struggling in a vast web, where life revolves around the pursuit of factory jobs, social security, educational degrees, and certifications. It's like playing a game where they need to collect all the necessary items to unlock the next level, which is the possibility of obtaining a local household registration, hukou. This is their current life. Sometimes, they may ask themselves, am I here to live or to play a game? On June 30th, General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, stated that while the widely known plan is for the Chinese military to be prepared to invade Taiwan by 2027, there is no evidence to suggest that Beijing has made such a decision. This gives the United States and other countries time to make it clear that the use of force is a bad idea. However, some analysts are concerned that Russia's actions in Ukraine may prompt Beijing to take the risk of attacking Taiwan. China's new ambassador to the United States, Xie Feng, presented his credentials to President Biden at the White House on Friday afternoon, June 30th. The Dutch government announced new restrictions on the export of chip-making technology on Friday. Under the new regulations, Dutch semiconductor companies must obtain government approval before selling certain types of chip manufacturing equipment abroad. The Dutch government stated that the new rules will come into effect in September this year to prevent China from enhancing the military capabilities of the People's Liberation Army using Dutch technology. In response, a spokesperson for the Chinese embassy in the Netherlands called it an abuse of export control measures and a serious deviation from the principles of free trade and international economic rules, firmly opposing it. After the U.S. government approved over $400 million in arms sales to Taiwan, the Chinese mainland has been continuously sending military aircraft and ships to the vicinity of Taiwan for 2 consecutive days. The Taiwanese Ministry of Defense stated on the 30th that around 8 a.m., they detected 24 instances of Chinese military aircraft, with 11 instances crossing the median line of the Taiwan Strait. There were also 5 Chinese military ships conducting joint combat readiness patrols. In response, the Taiwanese military stated that they are closely monitoring the situation and will respond accordingly. It is reported that during a radio broadcast evacuation, the Chinese People's Liberation Army allegedly retorted that Taiwan is part of China. 4 Chinese missile destroyers and other ships were spotted sailing near Kagoshima Prefecture. Japan is closely monitoring the situation. Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov said that Iran will become a full member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization next week. The Hong Kong SAR government recently filed a lawsuit with the High Court seeking to ban the dissemination of the song, Glory to Hong Kong. The court has scheduled a hearing for July 21. The Secretary for Innovation and Technology of Hong Kong, Alfred Sitt, revealed that they previously requested Google to prioritize the correct national anthem when displaying search results for Hong Kong. However, Google requested a court order before they would take down the aforementioned song related to the anti-extradition bill protests. Therefore, the Hong Kong government decided to resolve the issue through legal means. 3 years ago, the Hong Kong version of the national security law came into effect. Today, a former member of the Hong Kong Legislative Council said, "We have lost our freedom, and now all forms of protest are deemed criminal." On the 26th anniversary of Hong Kong's handover of sovereignty and the 3rd anniversary of the implementation of the national security law, Kwang Chung-ching, an activist studying in Germany, stated that she has noticed Hong Kong students in Germany being more cautious when expressing political opinions. She also observed that Hong Kong people are returning to a more apolitical lifestyle. At the same time, she believes that Western countries, including Germany, have not fully figured out how to deal with China. On Saturday, July 1st, the high-speed rail in China opened its direct route between Chengdu and Hong Kong for the first time, with the inaugural train departing from Chengdu at 8:48 a.m. On June 30th, Hong Kong's community radio station announced that it was forced to shut down after its funding channels through crowdsourcing and donations were blocked. The community radio station was founded by former pro-democracy Legislative Council member Leung Kwok Hung in 2005 and is known for its sharp political talk shows and advocacy for press freedom. Leung recently stated on social media that the red lines in Hong Kong are everywhere, the political situation is dangerous, and the radio station's bank accounts have been frozen. China's newly revised anti-spying law will come into effect this Saturday. A bulletin issued by the U.S. National Counterintelligence and Security Center warns that this law has a vague definition of espionage activities and gives the Chinese government more authority to access and control corporate data, potentially turning normal business activities into criminal acts. Conducting economic research, studying databases, and analyzing statistical data, which are ordinary practices in the business world, may now pose greater legal risks for foreign companies and individuals in China due to the new anti-spying law. An op-ed in the Daily Mirror points out that China is attempting to apply the concept of internal control to its external relations through legal means. The article states that China repeatedly tries to justify the most serious violations of proportionality principles or civil rights with legal arguments. For example, the establishment of re-education camps in Xinjiang under the guise of de-radicalization, or the implementation of the national security law in Hong Kong. There are rumors of unrest in the Chinese military due to the Wagner Group mutiny, but these reports cannot be confirmed. The Chinese rocket force is said to be undergoing a purge, but the information is unverified. In a notable read this week, the Chinese National Audit Office announced that local governments in China have inflated their revenues by $12 billion through a series of fictitious land and other state-owned asset transactions. This means that the financial situation of China's local governments last year was worse than what most economists had imagined. China's manufacturing sector has contracted for the 3rd consecutive month, and the non-manufacturing sector is weak. The worsening shortage of job opportunities raises doubts about whether the government's actions are sufficient to address the weak economic growth. Macro analysts at Capital Economics stated that unless specific support measures are implemented quickly, the recent low demand could potentially enter a self-reinforcing vicious cycle. The Chinese Communist Party celebrates its 102nd anniversary. As of December 31, 2022, there were a total of 98.041 million party members. Recently, there has been a resurgence in human trafficking activities in Vietnam. One contributing factor is that younger Vietnamese people generally believe that the standard of living in China is much better than in Vietnam, especially considering China's recovery from the pandemic. This perception makes many Vietnamese women susceptible to false job opportunities. However, what they don't realize is that as China's economic recovery slows down due to the impact of the pandemic, Chinese young people are also struggling to find employment. Hello everyone, I am your news anchor Yali, providing you with a one-stop service for China-related news every day. Feel free to leave comments in the comment section, and we will carefully read and respond to your comments. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We'll see you in the next episode. Take care everyone.